These are stories where love meets betrayal. Stories that make you see life a little differently.
The rain started early that day, soft at first, almost polite, as if it wanted permission to fall. I noticed it while standing in the kitchen, watching water trace thin lines down the glass. It felt familiar. Rain always did. He was in the other room, on a call, lowering his voice when he thought I couldn't hear, pausing too long between words, choosing them carefully. We had been married for 9 years, long enough to know each other's breathing in the dark, long enough to recognize when silence meant nothing and when it meant everything. I told myself I was imagining things, that routine can look like distance, that love doesn't always sound warm, but the rain outside disagreed. That evening we ate dinner together, plates clinking softly, forks moving in a rhythm learned over years. He smiled when I spoke, answered questions, touched my hand. Everything looked normal, and that scared me more than if something had been obviously wrong. Later, when he went to shower, his phone lit up on the table. Just once. Then again. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I remembered the woman I used to be, the one who believed that trust meant never looking, the one who thought love was fragile and must be protected from doubt. The rain grew heavier, louder, more honest. I picked up the phone. No password. He had never needed one before. The message was short, casual, too casual to be harmless. Did you tell her? My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I felt calm, as if some part of me had already known. I put the phone back exactly where it was, aligned it with the edge of the table, returned to my seat. When he came back, towel around his waist, hair damp, he looked relaxed, safe, unaware that something invisible had cracked. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and it wasn't a lie yet. That night, the rain didn't stop. It pressed against the windows like a question that refused to go away. I lay beside him, listening to his breathing, counting the seconds between each rise and fall of his chest, wondering when love turns into habit and habit into betrayal. I didn't confront him, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to understand. Betrayal isn't always a sudden fall. Sometimes it's a slow erosion, like rain wearing down stone, quietly, patiently, and I had only just begun to listen. The rain followed us everywhere after that evening. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to remind me that something had shifted. I didn't confront him, not yet. I needed more than suspicion. I needed certainty. Days passed. He became more attentive, kinder, almost gentle, as if he sensed the distance growing inside me and tried to close it with small gestures. But trust, once cracked, does not mend with kindness. I began to notice patterns, the way he angled his phone away from me, how his smile arrived half a second too late when I entered the room, the sudden meetings, the unexplained absences wrapped in casual excuses. I followed him again, not immediately. I waited for the moment that felt inevitable. That evening, the rain returned heavier. Sheets of water erased the outlines of buildings, softened the city into blurred reflections. He said he would be late. Work, always work. I put on my coat and stepped outside. The streets smelled of wet stone and electricity. I stayed far enough behind him to remain unseen, close enough to feel the truth approaching. He didn't go to the office. He didn't go home. He stopped in front of a small apartment building, old, quiet, anonymous. I watched from across the street as he rang the bell, waited, smiled. The door opened. She stood there, not young, not dazzling, not what betrayal is usually painted as. She looked ordinary, which somehow hurt more. She stepped aside and let him in. No hesitation, no surprise, like this was routine. I stayed there longer than I should have, rain soaking through my clothes, cold settling into my bones. I didn't cry, not then, because in that moment something else happened. The image I had of him collapsed completely, not shattered, collapsed, quietly, irreversibly. I walked away, slowly, deliberately. At home, the silence was unbearable. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the rain against the window. I replayed every memory, every promise, every moment I had defended him, to others and to myself, and I realized something painful. I hadn't been blind. I had been hopeful. Hope can look a lot like trust. When he came home late that night, I pretended to be asleep. His movements were careful, guilty. He lay beside me, breathing evenly, as if nothing had changed, as if I hadn't watched him disappear into someone else's life. I stared at the ceiling in the dark. The rain drummed steadily above us. I knew then that confrontation would not be explosive. There would be no shouting, no dramatic confessions. This would be something colder, cleaner, more final. Because love does not always end in tears. Sometimes it ends in clarity, and clarity had already begun to root inside me. The rain changed before dawn. It wasn't steady anymore. It came in waves, like breath after crying too long. I stood in the kitchen, barefoot on the cold floor, watching the city wake up through the wet glass. He sat behind me at the table, silent, smaller than I had ever seen him. Hours earlier, I had laid everything between us, not with anger, not with tears, but with precision. The phone, the messages, the timeline that no longer matched his words. He had tried to deny it, then to soften it, then to explain it. "I never stopped loving you," he said finally. I turned to him slowly. "Love isn't something you claim after betrayal," I said. "It's something you protect before it." His eyes filled. Mine did not. That was when I understood something terrifying and liberating. I was already past the worst part. The worst part wasn't discovering the truth. It wasn't watching him lie. It wasn't even realizing how long it had been happening. The worst part was over the moment I stopped hoping he would become someone else. He reached for my hand. I let him touch it, just for a second. His fingers trembled. Mine were steady. "I don't hate you," I said, "and that's how I know this is over." Outside, the rain slid down the buildings like something being washed away. I packed quietly, not everything, just what belonged to the woman I was becoming. He followed me from room to room, saying nothing. There was nothing left to say. At the door, he finally spoke again. "Will you ever forgive me?" I paused, not for drama, for honesty. "Forgiveness isn't a gift," I said. "It's a process, and right now, I'm choosing distance." I stepped into the rain. It soaked my hair, my coat, my skin. But for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like punishment. I walked without direction, past streets that held our memories, past places that no longer had power over me. I thought I would feel empty. Instead, I felt space. Days passed, then weeks. I moved into a small apartment with windows that faced the west. Every evening, rain or not, the light softened there. He sent messages, apologies shaped differently each time, promises that arrived too late. I didn't respond, not because I was cruel, but because I was done negotiating with the past. One evening, as rain tapped gently against my window, I made tea and sat on the floor. No music, no distractions, just me and the sound of water meeting glass. I thought about the woman I had been, the one who explained away discomfort, who confused patience with loyalty, who believed love meant endurance. I don't blame her. She did the best she could with what she knew. But I don't live there anymore. The rain still comes. It always will. But now, when it falls, it doesn't remind me of what I lost. It reminds me of what I refused to lose. My voice, my clarity, myself. And that is how this story ends.
Sometimes pain doesn't come from enemies, but from the ones we trusted the most. Maybe that's how life teaches us to see the truth. Could you forgive such a betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming, stories that will touch your heart.